everybody. I'm Lzzy Hale from the band Halestorm, and you are tuned in with Side Jams with Brian Reisman.
Greetings, everyone. This is Brian Reisman, host of Side Jams, a show where we talk to musicians about their outside passions and their hobbies. And today we have Joe Hottinger, guitarist for Halestorm.
Hello.
World traveler and photographer.
Yeah, I dive in.
You dive in, and we're supposed to plug the new album Everest, which I'm enjoying.
Thank you. Yep, comes out August 8th. It might be out by the time this airs. I don't know.
And obviously you're used to being on stage. You guys were at Back to the Beginning, the big Ozzy tribute.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of photography because you actually got some cool shots there. I know you got a shot of Lzzy and Tony Iommi backstage.
Yeah. I had my camera on me the whole time. It was like we were so excited just to be asked to play that show. We're like, oh my god, all right, yeah. And being there, the vibe was so awesome. It was such a fun. I don't know. Everyone was so happy. There's such a together thing, celebrating Ozzy and Sabbath's music, and none of these bands would exist if it wasn't for them, and everyone, I think, felt the gravity of it, and everyone was just happy to be there. Like, we were talking to Adam Jones from Tool, and he was like, yeah, it's like sometimes you get bucket list things that you didn't even know were on the list, and that's kind of what's fun about playing rock and roll, and just like metalheads in general, hard rockers. It's such a great community, and these bands and these lifers, that were all there, and all the fans that are lifers for this genre, and everyone was so just together and on a great vibe. It was I've never felt anything like it at a show. You
take your camera around a lot. You're used to being on stage and being photographed. I know you've been doing photography since the first album, and you started with all the Kodak, which is, I guess, the low grade digital version of a Polaroid, instant results. And you've moved up. I know you're a big fan of Leica cameras. You've been photographed for years. Has now getting behind the lens, now that you've been in front of the lens so much, and then going behind it, has it changed the way you think about yourself on stage? And even the way you photograph other people?
Not so much on stage. And during like our photo shoots and stuff, I'm way more aware of where the light's coming from, and lighting, because I love doing portraits too. And yeah, I'm better, I think, on the other side of in front of the camera in like photo shoots because of it. Just because it's you reading light, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be a weird shadow if I put my face in this direction. But if I'm like allow the light in a little bit, I think it'll work better for what we're going for here. So it's a little bit there. On stage, not so much. I mean, I see all the photographers out there. I like to mess with them. I always have, though.
How so? What's your favorite?
Oh, like I'll always do the old like, kick my foot at them as I get a shot. If they're using the right lens, you get a cool kind of weird long leg, shots you don't typically get shooting from the pit.
I mean, I know you're a big fan of Jim Marshall's photography, and he goes back way to the 60s, like the Beatles and Dylan and Monterey Pop and stuff with his guitar on fire and stuff like that. I don't feel like we have as many of those kind of moments anymore, probably because they've been done. I mean, that's kind of the tricky thing of rock and roll has been around for 70 years. But you got some cool shots of Lzzy, you got cool shots. How often... I mean, you're on stage, so you don't obviously get to... Do you ever bring your camera on stage and try to sneak shots during, like, say, the beginning of a ballad, or there's certain... Because I know you've gotten shots of your bandmates performing with other people.
Yeah. No, like, if Lizzy's on the piano or something, or if I have a small break, I won't go on stage and shoot. I'll do it from the side, or I'll go behind RJ during his drum solo and snap a few pictures, But, or if some from the side, but I'll bring my camera out on stage at the end of a show sometimes and grab a few. But yeah, I don't know. I try not to get too out there during a show if I'm not performing,
When you started doing photography, obviously you just sort of had a natural curiosity of things. What did you find yourself photographing back in the early days of the band? And then as you got on and you sort of upgraded your equipment, what were the things that you found yourself more interested in over time?
So like at first, like you get your first camera, and it's like everything, like, look, I took a picture of this flower and it looks so cool. You can see everything, you're just like fascinated by it. You don't know why, it's like when I started playing guitar. I don't know why I want to do this. I just I'm really enjoying it, and I'm doing, it's kind of like for all the right reasons, oh, that looks neat and that's fun. And then you start to like think about it a little bit. Like we were in the whole process of making that first album. I went through, I think I like upgraded my camera twice. I went from a crappy Kodak to a Nikon Coolpix kind of point and shoot, which had better quality and you could mess with, the aperture a little bit and kind of had a flash built in so you can kind of get some weird flash shots. And then I got my first DSLR, a Nikon, I think D40. And I got on Craigslist in LA like a 50 millimeter 1.4 or 1.8 or something really wide open. It was like $50, plastic little lens, but it was so cool. And it was all manual, there was no motors in it or anything. So just had to learn how to manipulate that, and that's still my most fun way of taking pictures. I love it's like I have my M11 with me, just like a rangefinder. It's all,
That's a Leica, right?
yeah, it's an M11 and you just gotta read the light, where are you gonna put your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture, the triangle focus, and kind of know. And then it's always kind of changing when I get inspired by stuff. We went in Stockholm on this last run at Fotografiska, I think it's called, like a
Hmm.
photo museum there, and they had a Anton Corbijn exhibit that just opened, and his stuff is so amazing. Um, I love how like there's this great Nick Cave picture where you can tell it's Nick Cave. It's not like this super sharp picture. It's not this high def. Like wow, he's all kind of fuzzed out. It's like and it was back in like film days, so it's definitely like some 3200 film or something. Black and white, and it's just kind of dreamy and blurry and dirty. And very very grainy. And I think it looks. I mean, it's just such an intense style, and so like rock and roll is dirty. Like photos can be rock and roll, like hard rock. They can have this kind of dirtier feeling to them, and I've just been obsessed with that lately. Putting the ISO as high as I can, and even if it's daylight, cranking the shutter, and but also getting like the aperture down as low as I can with that much light. Get the lens as wide open as possible, and kind of getting the essence of I practice on Lzzy all the time because I always have my camera. I mean, we hang out together all the time, and
Okay, yeah,
so
no good.
just like I'm always taking picture, kind of trying to go for like an older Anton thing, where it's just grainy and dirty. There's a great shot of Sinead O'Connor he took, and where he like focuses on the background and she's blurry in the front, but it's that it's very obviously her, and such a cool way to look at her, and just stuff like so it's like it's so much easier, I think, with a rangefinder and a fully manual setup to like, all right, yeah, this is the light if you want a perfectly in focus and tune picture,
Yeah.
properly exposed. But I don't know, that's boring to me right now. Like I'm kind of, all right, now I want to stylize it. I want to make it weird and dive in. And I'm sure you could do it all in post or whatever, but I don't know how to use Photoshop. I just use Lightroom. So I'm more interested in having it all in camera.
It's interesting because yeah, I interviewed a few months ago. I interviewed Jonathan Rachman, who had photographed Nine Inch Nails on the Downward Spiral tour. And
Cool.
he was literally beginning. He had done a little bit of photography, I think, but not very much. He became friends with Trent when Trent was finishing up the album in his studio, and so he needed a tour photographer and he needed a videographer, and he just trusted Jonathan just to go out and do it, um, which is impressive. And at the same time, a lot of the shots aren't always in focus, so they're grainy, they're like you said, they're a little dirty, but that kind of captured a lot of the essence of the band at the time, which they had very chaotic performances. Um, I remember growing up buying Circus and Hit Parader and Cream, and a lot of the shots, I mean, they didn't have the 3-song rule yet in play. So you had pictures of people
Okay.
like an hour into the set and they're sweaty and like they're really
Yeah.
working hard, and you really wanted to see that. You wanted to see these guys putting on a show. And that's all changed now. Like nobody wants you to do that
I know
anymore.
what's the Beyonce rule? I think it was like you had 18 seconds to shoot her because that's when she started sweating. Like there, I swear to God, I've heard that was the thing. Like, no, you get 18 seconds at the start of the show because after that she's sweating, and it's like, whoa, what? That's
That's what you're
insane.
doing. You're working hard. It's so weird that we live in this age now where people want these perfect images.
Yeah.
And you, I mean, obviously, I look at a lot of your portraits of Lzzy. I mean, you've been in the band together, you've been together for a long time, so there's a personal intimacy that allows her to be maybe a little more vulnerable in front of you. But you also have a perspective on her. You know, there's a great shot of her in the 50th Street station in New York City. You know, where it's just
Yeah.
like her just being, you know, like you said, subway girl. And then you have other more live shots. You have an interesting post shot of her where she's wearing a red outfit, I think red boots, and has this guitar, but she's partially, her legs are sort of partially getting swallowed up by the darkness. It's kind of an interesting image. Was that on purpose or is that just the way that came out?
Um, it's kind of the way it came out. Yeah, that wasn't so much on purpose. It was during the Darkness Always Wins video, and I
Yeah.
brought a flash with me, like one of my B10 flash. Just had the idea of like, well, it's a video shoot, which is a whole lot of waiting around, And I was
Yeah.
like, well, once everyone's all dressed up in their video outfits and everything, let's get some. I want to get some portraits, and there was like a black curtain, and it was in this warehouse, so everything was really, really dark in there. So I just kind of set the flashlight. I was like, just come over and stay. And she's got 2 minutes before she's got to go out there, and was trying to do it. And I didn't mind that. Like, that's just what happens. I didn't have like a big plan. It wasn't. I knew it was just going
Yeah.
to be a single flash thing from the side, and I love like single flash, like especially on top of a camera. You get really dirty looking images that are like overblown or something, and you
Yeah.
know anything that is anything that's weird is cool to me, and if you can do it in camera. So it wasn't totally the idea, but I saw it, I was kind of messing with it, and so I was like, oh no, that's cool. And I got RJ and Josh too with kind of the same lighting as getting swallowed up, and it's the darkness always wins, so it kind of worked.
Kind of worked. Actually, it did. Well, yeah, you've got, I mean, are there any favorite shots you've taken of her over the years? You've got a lot
Oh
of different
yeah.
ones here.
Yeah, man, I have a lot, like during COVID, especially, like obviously we had a lot of time on our hands, and I had
Yeah.
I had already invested in a few lights and like some backdrops and stuff, and just kind of had it set up in the basement, and I was taking like a lot of online photography classes, and watching Leica was doing a great series with a bunch of photographers, just how they operate, guys just spilling their beans about why they love it and how they operate and how they do things. And so, it was a very inspiring time learning kind of the history of photography all the way back to like the first images in a museum, and just going through the whole thing, be like, oh, look at that. And like trying to relight. And I was buying a lot of photo books, and I'm just a book collector. I'm a collector of things, guitars, books, camera, things, yeah, that I love to consume or see or and so yeah, I'd see something that would be inspiring, like, Lizzie, I'm going to try something. Come downstairs, and we got some really neat images, and I get hit up now every once in a while, like Spotify needed a picture like yesterday, by yesterday at the time, to get Lizzie on a billboard in New York, and I was like, all right, I'll figure something out. Let's make it unique instead of it looking like just a press shot of Lizzie to go up. Let's try to get something with some energy. It's for like the women in metal, so the women's music. I think it was March. Is that the Women Month or whatever? And
International Women's Month, or
yeah,
yeah.
and she's got some really cool signature guitars and whatever. I got a great picture of her that just, I don't know, spoke like woman power to me. It was like light coming out of her, and it was just a focus trick in camera, just a zoom thing on my SL2S, but
Yeah.
it had like a magic sauce to it, and it looked great on the billboard. It really worked out. That was, I mean, I love that one. My favorite my favorite stuff is kind of the more, like, I have a unique perspective, right? I play rock and roll, and when I was a kid, seeing, like you said, getting Guitar World and Rolling Stone and all these magazines, seeing anything backstage or on stage or like that whole world was such a mystery to me. I did not understand it. I remember going to my first ever show at the TLA in Philly with a Verve Pipe and K's Choice, or Verve Pipe Tonic and K's Choice,
Mm.
and like anything on the radio back then, I loved it. It was all new music to me, and I was like, this is amazing. And like going there, and like I didn't know how they were gonna switch band. Like, who are those guys on stage? Look at all the knobs on that board. What is going on? It was wild to me. So I've always loved that perspective, and I like to think of like when I was a kid, I would have loved to see. I love the backstage shots, like the Jim Marshall shots. You look at
Yeah.
Keith Richards and what's on the table over there, and what's going on. What was it like back then to tour? And there's so much in some of those pictures to take that isn't the subject. And that's kind of my perspective. I'm backstage every day. We travel the world, and I think it's cool. So I like to show some of that stuff.
And then what was your favorite shot from back at the beginning,
Um,
like in
oh
Birmingham?
man, there's a few. I got so annoying. Like anytime we were hanging out with someone, like, "Can I get your picture with Lzzy?" Like I want to get your picture. But those are cool. I really liked the one of Lzzy and RJ kind of walking up to at the after our set. I had my tech give me my camera when I gave him my guitar,
Yeah.
and they were kind of walking up to the front to kind of like wave goodbye, and I have some of like Lzzy and RJ both like kind of pose like, yeah, we did it, like posing for me. But the more just natural, like Lzzy, like you can tell, I don't know, it says so much more. Like you can tell we just went through it. We didn't know if it was good. And it was such an intense experience. You had 15 minutes. It was like Live Aid sets, 15 minutes, and it went by so fast. And it was awesome. I think, I don't know, you couldn't tell. It was like you blacked out, and she just has a look on her face like shell shock almost, like she knew she was going, I don't know. That was my
Yeah.
favorite one, that giant crowd behind him. And I had to black and white it out because that's
Right.
good rock and roll shit, black and white photos.
Well, you guys after that, you guys opened up for Maiden and a big show in the UK. I think it was UK, right? Or was it
Yeah,
different?
we did. We kind of went around Europe with them. We did 10 or I don't know how many shows, 10 to 15 shows with them. London was the
Cool.
last one.
Because there's a shot you're actually holding the camera and you can see your arms outstretched, right? And
Yeah.
you're holding the camera and you've got all the it's a really exuberant expression on your face with this massive crowd behind it. That's a cool self-portrait.
Oh, I forgot to bring my camera with me. That was my iPhone, but like they
Oh,
say, the
really? So
best,
you did an iPhone thing.
yeah, the best camera you have is the one on you. So I don't get mad anymore when I forget my camera because I always have my phone with me. I'm like, there's a camera on there. It's going to be fine if I feel the need to take a shot. But yeah, that show in London, that was like, sometimes I literally just put a post up before we started talking of kind of my pedal board and mic stand and the view of the London Olympic Stadium behind it. And I was kind of talking about it in there. I mean, it was one of my favorite Hailstorm shows ever, and it wasn't even a headliner. We were opening up for Maiden, and
Yeah.
but the crowd was on our side. London's one of our biggest crowds in the world, if not our biggest, and the crowd was with us nearly from the beginning, like all the way back, and so it was like so much energy coming off them, and we played such a good show. Like we were pretty flawless, which we don't use a click track or any tracks or anything. We just the four of us going out there and playing is the noise you get, and we always make mistakes. Like that's just, which is fine to me. Like I said, it's rock and roll. It's okay to be dirty, and I I'm not that into like if I want to listen to a record, I'll put it on at home. I don't need to go listen, And we everything was a little fast tempo wise. We were very excited, but I think that's okay. That's fun, And we heard back the recording, like, cool. And so I was just pumped. I had to get a selfie with the crowd because we didn't get a picture of all of us out of for some reason. I think we were in a hurry to get off the stage. I was like, no, fuck that. I'm gonna get out there and I mean, I was so I was like high on life. That's the best drug in the world as far as I'm concerned is playing a rock show, and that was that was a potent dose. That one.
So what do you like about you predominantly shoot with Leica, correct?
Yeah.
So what is it about Leica that sets it apart? I mean, my dad was a Nikon guy. I shot with Nikon in film school. I still use digital stuff today. I know a lot of people use Canon, Nikon, Sony. Leica is a more exclusive camera. I met Randy Blythe years ago, and he had a Leica on him. And
Yeah.
there's other people that shoot with that. What is it about that camera about the imagery, everything? What do you like about it?
Like with the rangefinder stuff, the M series of theirs, that's the magic stuff. Even like I have an SL2S and a Q2 also, and they're really really great. But to me, like I have to use that. Like I've been hired to shoot some shows before. I much prefer playing guitar on stage, not shooting people on stage. Like
Yeah.
that's a hustle. Those people that do that. But but to me, like, just there's something magic when you nail the shot on the rangefinder, or even when you
Yeah.
don't nail the shot. To me, that's where the good shit lies, like the rangefinder. I know I'm really good with my 28 millimeter, my 35 millimeter lens, but like if you're this far away from me at the screen, I know you're about here. I don't even have to like line up the look through the focus and line up the squares. It's like you're
Yeah.
about here, and I can pretty much read light in room now and in rooms or outside. And I don't know. To me, that like it's just the composition. It's full control of the composition, and you're not pushing tons of buttons and like it's just like and
Yeah.
we're there, we're in, and we're going. And I don't know. I haven't spent much time on newer Sony's, Canons, or Nikons. I just don't really know that much about them. I rented an M camera once to see if it was for me because they're really expensive. And before I made the investment, I had to make sure, and
Yeah.
I fell in love immediately. I was like, oh no, I get this. This is my language. And to me, that's it. And of course, like it's some of the best glass in the world without its smallest and most precise. I went to the Leica factory in Wetzlar, Germany, and we hung out with the guy in charge of the lens department for like an hour and a half, and he just took us through the process. And it's wild, their precision and what it's German engineering, yeah. And like the next closest is like these Zeiss lenses, but no one has the what do you call it? It's like the room for error. The with the error that they allow I
Yeah.
don't I can't think of the terminology off the top of my head, but they just like if any slightest thing goes wrong, like people there's like 17, 18 elements of glass in some of these lenses, and they can't be touched, and it's like this touch-free process. And they had a whole bucket of things that were imperfect in some way, and he's like, oh, you want some pieces of glass from lenses that are we're just going to throw them out. And I was like, "Hell, cool souvenir." But it was neat to go there and not only see the history. They invented the 35 millimeter format um, in the 1920s, and like the lens I have on my M right now is from 1961 or 62. It's a 50 millimeter. And so you
Oh,
get these, and it has such a great vibe. Like when you have it wide open, it's almost dreamy and instant vintage vibes, coming from the glass. So you can get into these old lenses like that. I have an old 60s Canon 0.95 lens
mhm.
that somebody in Japan put an M mount on there, so it fits on my M camera. And it's called the dream lens for a reason. It's like when you have it wide open, it's like a Barbara Walters interview from the 80s, and it was all just kind of fuzzy everywhere, but you can get so precise in on someone. Like it's just, I don't know. I've had so much fun going down these like rabbit holes, and there's so much vibe, and you have so much control over what vibe you want. You want to get precise, it's gorgeously clear,
Yeah.
and that's not my favorite thing, but if I need to, I can.
There's one shot that you had. I was scrolling through your Instagram, and like, yeah, I think it's a shot of Josh holding up these marbles right to his eyes. And it's a really eerie image because he's smiling, but it's got a bit of a horror movie vibe there. Like, it just looks so weird.
Yeah, no, I think that was at his birthday party. We were at a bar for his birthday, and I don't know what was on there was things around, and we were just having a good time. And that, I like having when the parties start backstage, I like having the camera with me because that's a lot of the fun stuff starts happening then. That whole my perspective, the life we lead, and just kind of being able to show it and document it and capture it is that's part of it. But yeah, and getting goofy, and we're a goofy band. We're all still best friends, and there's something about joining a band. I think that's when your maturity level kind of stalls out. Like we all just kind of stalled out there, and we still laugh to the point of tears every day, and we're having a good time. We still love it, just love hanging out, and I love showing that because you can capture a lot of that vibe.
You were talking before about you kind of can glean what the exposure is going to be. I mean, how often do you use a light meter anymore then?
I don't. I have like a Hasselblad, one of the 500s, and I'll use a light meter when I'm shooting that, or like the big medium format.
Right.
6x6 cameras. And if I really wanted to, if I want to make sure, I just have one on my phone. Just hold it up and kind of read it depending on the film I have. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, I don't shoot that often. I've got all this film and a bunch of film cameras, and I'm kind of just waiting for a project, or if there's something where I'm like, oh no, this would look cool on some film, and then I'll dive in. But I brought it with me on this tour, a bunch of my film cameras, but I haven't even pulled them out yet. It's I hang out with my M11 all the time.
Yeah, the problem I have with a lot of movies now is it feels like they're. I'm a big horror movie fan, and it's incredible what they can do with low exposures now. But of course, as you know, the lower the exposure, then the less depth of field you have, and the flatter the image looks.
Yeah,
And so there's a lot of these movies now that have a washed out look to them. There's one guy online who was a cinematographer talking about how the stuff actually looks washed out. And I was watching a movie last night called House of Darkness. And it was dark, but it still had color in it. And I've noticed that about a lot of your stuff. Like you're obviously obsessed with green guitars. You have lots of them, and you shoot them. And it's interesting the way you actually have your guitar portraits, because you'll have them in front of a black speaker, but then you have a lot of speakers. You have a lot of the gear in the background, so it's a darker, more of a monochromatic background. So the color of the guitar pops even more. That seems to be very purposeful.
yeah,
Do that.
yeah. No, totally. Yeah, it was like before last summer tour. I was like, I should just get out all my green guitars because I have them all at home in cases, and just kind of document them. It would be a fun thing to put up online over the coming year. And I was, trying to think of a good kind of setup, and I was looking at like all these guitar dealer websites, kind of how they shoot, and there's some great guitar photographers out there, and how they shoot their guitars. So I got one of my little Marshall speakers and just kind of balanced stuff, and thought it was cool with like the little kind of hallway it was in with the cases on the right, and I have these wood crates from some speakers on the left, and yeah, I lit it up. I had a few different lights and my flash on it, and trying to get it without the glare, get the right angle on the flash, and soften it up a bit. But yeah, and make the color pop totally, and show all the different shades of green that they make on these guitars. It was fun.
I think you probably have enough photos at this point to do a Hailstorm photo book, don't you?
Oh, easily. I just have to figure out how to put that together. Like, I'm going to talk to somebody at some point, and I just need some of the end goal details. Like, what are we printing this on? Do I how do how do I where's a format there I can just, instead of just, I just got to print them all out on however I want it and then put it together, and I'll get there one of these days.